welcome to Indus Special. I'm Meshal Malik. Pakistan is home to over 220 million souls. Amongst the masses and masses of people, we have stories of women who defy all standards, women who go beyond the ordinary. The women of Pakistan are resilient, fearless, and brave. They have excelled and conquered almost every field, from medicine to mountain cycling. The stories of these women must be told, celebrated, and understood, because from these incredible women, people all across the world can draw inspiration. We're in conversation with some of these women today. Joining us right now is Dr. Fatma Ali Haider, founder of the Grief Directory. The aim of Grief Directory is to help grieving families affected by terrorism and establish support groups. The Grief Directory aims to empower families, especially women and children, affected by political violence and terrorism. Also joined with us is Samar Khan, who's a cyclist. Samar Khan in 2016 was the first woman in the world to cycle to the high Bayafo glacier in the Karakoram mountains of Pakistan. In 2017, Samar became the first Pakistani woman to summit Africa's highest peak. Thank you for joining us both.
Thank you, Mishal.
Samar, let's start with you. So when and how did this love for adventure take place and give birth within you?
Been 4 years now, and it just started as soon as I tasted when I had the taste of the thrill, because once you taste it, you cannot stop exploring, and you can stop having adventures. I started from paragliding from Army School of Physical Training in 2015 or 14 maybe. Then I tried different sports. I tried trekking, mountaineering, mixed martial arts too. But cycling, it became very special to me because it helped me to discover the people of my country, to discover those remote areas, which I always heard in stories and in books. And the main thing was to discovering my strength.
Samar, what was different about cycling? Why were you drawn to it?
Cycling, it sets me free, I think. It makes me feel confident, strong, and free because I can travel anywhere just on two wheels. And the feel that you have while riding, it's unexplainable because it feels very open, and normally the things we miss while riding cars and in other transport, we see each and every detail while riding bikes. And I loved mountains, so it was very easy for me to merge mountains with cycling. So it became mountain biking.
Samar, you have a master's degree in physics, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
And then cycling to mountains is completely different from that. So are you pursuing your career in physics as well at this point in time?
No, I love physics, and I'm looking forward to have my higher education in physics someday, very soon. But right now I'm totally focused and oriented towards sports. Because it has changed my life in magical ways, and I want the same strength, same courage for other females out there, and I want them to be empowered through adventure sports, because I have seen the same thing in West. The females are very confident. They are becoming idols and icons in sports for their upcoming generations, and that's what I want in Pakistan.
So Samar, of course, I'm sure you've gained a lot of confidence throughout your adventures and because of your adventures. But when you first began this and you went towards cycling over mountains, going to the highest mountain peaks, were there any drawbacks? Were there any constraints placed on you?
Initially, there are a lot of challenges, different types of challenges, and the initial few things which a female face whenever she opts for a public or an odd field, according to our society, is social barriers, the fear of people, the fear of family, how to take their confidence and make them realize the importance of the field.
Was your family supportive, Samar?
Initially, they had fears, which I had to discuss in details about my safety, about my security, about the place where I'll be living, the places where I'll be traveling. So yeah, I had to discuss the things for months. But once I have attempted my first record of traveling from Islamabad to highest international border, I have biked through it, and then to glaciers. Then it made them realize that I can manage outdoors and I can stay safe. And plus, I'm doing something very positive, being an adventure athlete. So they started supporting me then.
And of course, I mean, hesitations aren't uncalled for, because an adventure of this sort always has risks attached to it. But how did you personally think that the adventure outweighed the risks?
When actually I'm in my every expedition, I'm much more focused on the outcome. So the obstacles are there, the challenges are there, but it doesn't stop me, because I'm much focused and passionate about my goals. So I've been to landslidings, I've been to accidents. I had a lot of road accidents and injuries, but then I take medicine and then I push myself. And the fight is on daily basis. Like, you have to push yourself on daily basis. Okay, a little more, and I'm almost there. But once you achieve it, like, everything is gone. All the struggles, all the hardships, all the pain, it ever shadows it, I think.
And I'm sure that like these adventures aren't just physically exhausting, they're also mentally exhausting. But describe for us the feeling when you were the first Pakistani female to climb that glacier in the Karakoram range. How did that feel like?
Once I entered in the glaciers, like, initially it felt like a death valley to me, because it was very uncertain, like rain, storms, then sudden landslidings. You are unaware of your path and track, like you have to make your own way. Then we had a group of 4 people. They were local climbers, which I hired for the expedition, because they know about the left right of the glacier. It's 67 kilometers of long iced floor, and it's like living 2 or 3 weeks of your life inside the refrigerator, I guess. In -10 or -15, you have to sleep on glaciers, you have to drink from glaciers, you have to eat on it, you have to walk on it. And then there are crevices like 100 to 200, 300 kilometers deep.
And Samar, you're describing your group for us, but how was the experience of being the only female in that group? Were you intimidated at any point, or did you feel like it just bolstered your strength knowing that you're the only one there and that you have to prove yourself?
Like, there were times of challenges, but when I realized that I will be the only one setting such type of example for Pakistani women, and I know it will go like beyond boundaries. So for that sense of achievement, I had to push myself. And once I've done that, I was like, when I was coming out from the glaciers, I was injured, like, and I was sick. I was empty pockets, because I couldn't get any sponsors at that time, but I was very, very happy and satisfied that I've done something substantial for Pakistan. That too in adventure sports, which was never done before. And on my way back to my city, when I was coming home, people started recognizing me, because the news, it started, spreading. And so yeah, I was really happy and proud.
Samar, just tell us, how was the experience in Pakistan, or how was the experience in Africa, I should say, different from the experience in Pakistan? Did you feel like there was a difference?
Actually, yeah, there's a correction I want to make, that I am the first woman to biked up on Kilimanjaro, because it was summited before by different climbers and mountaineers, even from Pakistan. But biking up there was quite challenging, because the climate, the track, the environment was totally different from Pakistani mountains. One thing I became more proud of about Pakistan, because we had a lot of mountain ranges. And in Africa, there was a single freestanding mountain, one and only mountain, and there was no mountain range. Like, there was a flat desert and flat area of land, and then there is a single mountain. and that was to a dormant volcano. So the diversity was very beautiful. I biked on deserts, I biked in the tropical jungle, I biked on the rocky tracks, I biked on snow. So I love the diversity and
And how
the
did it
oxygen
feel
level.
like representing Pakistan on such a huge platform and doing something so amazing as what you were doing?
You know, they kept forgetting my name and they used to call me Pakistani biker. So that what was very beautiful
Very
thing. And
endearing.
yeah. So I still like realize this that they will not remember my name, but they will remember my country. Like for many years, that there was a girl from Pakistan and she biked up here. So that was something really, to be proud of.
Summer will continue talking about the experiences that you had and what people's reactions were, especially internationally when you completed this feat. But let's move on to Dr. Fatma. Dr. Fatma, you are the founder of the Grief Directory. And before we get to what this initiative is, would you please share your story with us? How and why you began this?
Summer, my husband was an eye surgeon, and on 18th of February 2013, on a seemingly very ordinary day, when he was taking my younger son to school, both my son and my husband were targeted in an incident of sectarian violence. And unfortunately, I lost both of them. I had a 15-year-old son at that time and a 6-month-old baby daughter at that time. And for the first 6 months or so, which is basically understood as the time for grieving, I could not make any sense out of it because it was a huge tragedy. It was very sudden. It was the loss of not only a spouse and a breadwinner, but also the very, very painful, perhaps the most painful loss of a child as well. But I've been very lucky because being a woman, I was given support by other women, especially Dr. Nirmeen, one of my best friends and my husband's class fellow. And as we remember now and we reflect, I started writing on my laptop, thinking whatever came to my mind. And one day she came to me and she asked me what I was writing. And I said that I keep thinking that just like in times of happiness, we should be organized in times of grief as well. But unfortunately, in times of grief, and especially in situations like these where there is sectarian violence attached, where there is fear, the element of fear which is very strong, the family is not only struggling with grief, but with the chaos of fear and isolation as well. So I told her that my idea was to organize something which could be called the Grief Directory, very similar to the idea of the wedding registry abroad, where the about to be married couple has is registered in a superstore where all the gifts are given according to their needs and not in a very haphazard fashion, but whatever they need. If they need a cutlery set, or if they need a lamp, or if they need a tablecloth or a bed cover, so the families and the friends give support, give them those gifts according to their needs. And based on that, we kept developing this idea, but what really, I think, kicked off this idea and we decided to start it in an organized fashion was the APS tragedy, unfortunately. The APS tragedy made me realize that I was not the only mother who was grieving for a child. That day, families, mothers like me became a community. And that was a very, very unfortunate thing to realize. So in January 2015, we started the Grief Directory. The Grief Directory basically acts as a bridge of compassion between those people who volunteer to help, and on the other end are those families which are affected by political violence and terrorism.
Dr. Fatma, I'm really, really sorry for your loss, and no words that I could say could mean enough, but you took so much of the pain around you and you turned it into something that provided support to others. Where did you muster up that strength and where did you find that courage to do so?
Mishal, if I'm allowed to say so, it is very important for any individual to realize that the first responsibility of an individual is towards herself. And once you realize that, I think that is where the journey of healing begins. Throughout my journey of grief and loss, I was told that I had to live for my children. I had to live for the rest of the family, my husband's old parents, my mother. But I think the most important turning point was when I realized that I could not give hope to my children if I didn't have any for myself. So, and based on that, I think that the turning point was when I realized that this hope I had to develop not only through helping my own children, but ensuring the safety of other children who had suffered as well. Obviously, I could not bring my loved ones back, but I could reach out to those who were suffering. I could reach out to those whose problems and whose needs perhaps I understood better than those who had not faced such an incident and such a tragedy. I think the other factor which has contributed very much is the support that I have given by my family, and especially my friends, especially my female friends. So I think it has been a journey of women empowerment, I think.
Please tell us a little more about that. How were your female friends especially more supportive? And you keep reiterating this, that you drew more strength from the females around you than anything else. So in times of difficulty, how was it that you all gathered, and how do you feel like the females around you gave you support?
I think in Pakistan, we struggle with a lot of stereotypes, as someone has already mentioned. And in times of grief, those become highlighted. So living in Pakistan as a widow is a difficult thing to do. Grieving for a child and trying to talk about it needs a space which unfortunately does not exist in Pakistan. And my female friends, I think the way they've supported me is because being a female, they understood where I was coming from, how I was grieving for a child, what did it mean to lose a breadwinner, what did it mean to lose a companion, and also to understand how women's roles are undermined, especially in terms of tragedy. One of the incidents one of the conversations that I had with my son, I could clearly remember, because in the early days when we had so many people coming to our house to offer condolences, I heard this sentence repeatedly being said to my 15-year-old son, that he had to take care of his mother and his sister. And during all this grief and all that chaos, I felt so sorry for him, because I thought that this child has not only lost a father and a son, he is perhaps now on the brink of losing the rest of his young adulthood and his childhood. And it's something which his other friends and other peers are enjoying very much. So one day we had a conversation. I sat down with him and I said, look, I have to tell you something. Now that your father is no more, I want to make it very clear that now the man of the house is Mama and not you. And you have to enjoy your early adulthood years, you have to enjoy your education, and you have to pursue your career, and you have to pursue life as much as possible the way you wanted it to be in your father's life. And I think that it was the correct decision, because as a mother, it is my responsibility to ensure not only my children's physical safety, but also their emotional and mental well-being. And especially teenagers who are grieving, who are suffering, who are being sometimes isolated under such circumstances of fear and isolation, I think their emotional needs are very specific that a woman can understand. Where I think we need to change our social structure is that with such families, rather than interfering with the children's upbringing and with the needs of the widows themselves, I think the role of the woman should be empowered and emphasized. the woman's role in her children's life should be respected. Her decisions should be supported, and whatever she does for her child should be encouraged more. The communication between the mother and the child, direct communication, should be encouraged more rather than indirect communication. And how a mother can be supported through the Grief Directory, all our projects are focused on supporting women through education, through health, and health is not only in terms of physical health, but emotional and mental health is so very important.
Dr. Fatma, when I met you before, and even while talking to you, you exude a sense of positivity. You embody almost an ethic of hope. And I wonder, how do you, through the Grief Directory, pass on the message of hope to other grieving families?
Mishal, my mentor, Professor Marie Breen-Smith, who's an Irish and who has done excellent work on the Northern Ireland conflict resolution, says something very beautiful. She once wrote to me and she said that I have to tell you something, that grief is not an emotion, it is a practice. So I think for families like ours, especially for women, sometimes I understand that it becomes very, very difficult, especially under such testing circumstances as mine. It becomes very difficult to find grief and to find hope and then to hold on to that hope. But little actions, day by day, moment by moment, we have to hold on to our hope. And as mothers, I think our hope lies in our children. So I think that their growth, their prosperity, and that of our country can only come if we have hopeful mothers. But yes, it is a big struggle, I understand, but it is not impossible. That is the message that I try to communicate to other families by practicing hope, by the way I talk to them, by the way I try my best to reach out to them, to support them. Through our Facebook page of the Grief Directory, as unfortunate as it is, I think we have been able to now create a space where women who have lost their husbands, their breadwinners, and women who have lost their children are now comfortable in reaching out to us directly or to talk about their loss and their grief, what their journey has been like that, which I think is a huge vacuum in Pakistan otherwise, where grief is not encouraged to be talked about. We are very happy that we are trying to create that space.
And how is you talked a little about the reaction being that they open up more to you, the families that you reach out to, but can you tell us a little more how they react to such a support group? Because it is unique having such a support group and knowing that you are being taken care of by at least people who are understanding of you, of your emotions, and who are empathetic towards you at the most. So what is their reaction?
I think that we do have excellent support group systems through our culture, where women sometimes talk to other women. But what is specific about grief and pain is that sometimes you get the other feeling that unless the other person has suffered a loss very similar to yours, the other person may or perhaps cannot understand what one is going through. So I think there are two aspects of support groups important. I think in this age of social media, the support through social media is also very important. But then focusing on the support groups which involve physical presence, that I think perhaps are very invaluable and should be encouraged in Pakistan, where mothers who have suffered the loss of a child, where women who have suffered the loss of a breadwinner, because all these are struggles which have their own peculiar needs. And I think when it comes to terrorism and political violence, some issues are very much relevant to the situation, the peculiarity of the situation as well. So the most important thing is perhaps that the person you are talking to is very much in control. She has completed a journey which tells you that there is some hope, that life does not come to an end, that life does continue in some sorts, not in the same way, but in other positive ways as well. And then I think the commonality of the grief and loss, I think, does help other families and other women to open up.
Dr. Fatma will continue with this discussion. We have to go to a short break. When we return, we're going to explore other stories of amazing women. Stay with us. Hello and welcome back. We're talking to some amazing women with incredible stories. We're joined with Mahira Mayanji now, an activist from Karachi. Mahira established the World in a Nation welfare organization in 2013, a platform that provides free of charge education for over 125 girls through a system of 12 volunteers. The program has benefited more than 3,000 girls in Karachi so far. She was awarded the UNDP and Peace Award for her initiative. Thank you so much, Mahira, for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Mahira, can you tell us a little about how you started this initiative, and was this something you always envisioned doing?
So when I was in school, I found that a girl, she was hardly 7 to 8 years old, and she was selling ice lollies outside our school. I asked her that why you are not here with us and why you are not getting education. So she said that her father died a few years ago, and she and her siblings have to sell something so they could have food. So that was the thing that I kept in my mind. And when I was in class 7, I started teaching at the rooftop of my house. So in 2013, I established WIN, Women is a Nation. And with the help of my volunteer teachers, we did a survey. And that survey results showed that only 17% girls from Liari are educated. And that was quite shocking for me, that the area where I live, girls are illiterate. So we thought we should start teaching them, and that was the reason that we started teaching them. Yeah.
Mahira, with so much illiteracy, the figure you also mentioned, there must have been widespread hindrances that prevented you from actually materializing what you envisioned as this organization should be. Can you tell us a little about the hurdles you faced?
Yeah, so when I started teaching girls as an organization, at that time, it was the only female organization led by a female herself. So in between 2013 and 2014, some of the people from Liari as well, they started abusing us. Like they harassed some of us. They did harassment with one of my teachers, and they said that you have to stop teaching to the girls. We asked them, we negotiated with them, and then at the end, they abducted one of my colleagues from my organization, and they threatened us not to work for girls' education. So somehow at the point, we realized that we should stop our work because it may create any other problem for anyone. So we just stopped our work, and after 3 months, we started again. We started to teach girls. Actually, at WIN, we were teaching, at that time, we were teaching more than 80 girls at a time. And on Saturday, we were used to give them co-curriculum activities like workshops or sessions for them. So they were afraid of that maybe they are talking about girls' rights, they are talking about women's rights. So the girls and women will get empowered, and they will create hurdles for them. So,
Mahira, before we progress further, I just want to move back a little. So you mentioned how you were receiving threats and how a colleague was also abducted, and yet you resumed this initiative. That shows that you're fearless, that shows that you're brave. How did you get this strength to continue and pursue something this important?
So I just talked with my parents. I remember that I remained at my house for 1 month, and I was not going anywhere because some of them were continuously keeping an eye on me, and they were looking after all my activities. So I have to be stayed at my home. And I do remember that I one day I just talked to my father, and I asked him that see, I'm not doing anything, and I started organization to educate girls, and now I am the one who is sitting at home. I'm trying to save my life. At that time, what my father said to me, that go out, start your work, and never look back. If just be fearless. He was the one who taught me that you have to be fearless. If you want to educate them, you have to be fearless. Whether if they will kill you, it's okay. Go ahead.
So your father bolstered your strength and he made you go out and continue with your initiative. Myra, what does education mean to you? And I don't mean to say what does it mean in future prospects. What does it represent to you and to all the students you teach?
I believe in the saying which says, when you educate a man, you educate an individual. But when you educate a woman, you educate a nation. It's a high time that we realize this, that girls' population is more than boys. And in underdeveloped countries, girls play a vital role in house income. It's a high time to equip them with skills. Like, if you, like in Yari, like let me admit few things. Like in Yari, we do have a ratio of laborers. There are people who do home chores. Their women are engaged in home chores, and they don't have that much money, so they can educate their children. So the one problem that I realize that is in Yari, and that's the barrier to girls' education, is financial problem. And other thing is that early child marriage. So I think if for me, education is the most powerful tool which we can use to change the world. Yeah.
Myra, do you witness a transformation in the girls who are now educated? Do you think that their confidence has amplified? Do you think that they're much more aware of their rights?
Yeah, and a girl named Zainab, she was a child labor. She used to do home chores at people's house, and she was earning money. She never went to school. She was only 14 years old when she came to me, and I do remember the days when she was she was coming to my institute, and we were teaching her. She came with her mother, and her father is a driver. So they were not financially stable, so she has to support her family. So I do remember that her mother engaged her with maybe one of her cousins. So I mentioned it before that on Saturday we used to engage girls through different workshops and sessions. So there she knew about her rights. She was confident she can negotiate with her parents. So she asked her mother that she don't want to marry now. She's not ready for the marriage. She will complete her at least her intermediate, and then she will go for whatever they want. So the girl is still learning at our center, and she is completing her education. She is in class 7 now, and hopefully we have convinced her mother not to marry her till after if she completes her graduation.
Myra, that's an inspiring story and a great success story. I'd like to talk to Summer a little more. So Summer, when you went outside of Pakistan as a Pakistani woman, did you feel like there were certain expectations of you? They thought that you should be a certain way, and they were surprised to see a female cycling on top to the top of a mountain?
Actually, on that peak, it's a very commercial peak, and you can see a lot of foreigners, mountaineers from different countries. So when I was leaving by the midnight, and it was the last stretch to the summit, like everybody was pushing. And in the group, there were 5 to 6 groups of trekkers who were like climbing up continuously, and I was the only one with the bike. And everybody was staring at me that, are you crazy? Why are you dragging your bike uphill? And but when I reached there and I started riding, they started shouting and cheering me, and they came and they like for selfies, and they started interviewing me, especially about my country. And then it changed their perspective.
How was their perception exactly changed after you told them you were from Pakistan?
The first thing I like listened to them, they were saying like, from Pakistan we never expected girls riding, girls in sports. women traveling away from their homes because we thought that women are in cage, they are suppressed, and it's not a safe place for anyone. But when I shared about the mountain ranges, about the tourism traveling, about the sports of Pakistan, about the geography, about the opportunities we have, then it convinced them to come and visit Pakistan someday and to bring their bikes. So now a lot of people, they are in contact and they ask me that they are planning to come, and I have to take them to North and I have to ride with them. So now the perception, as far as I could, I tried my best to change it with as much as people. And the one thing I change perception with, I make documentaries. So when I came, I launched my video. After every expedition, I share my videos about the goods and bads, about the area, about Pakistan. So it helps because everybody is on social media and it goes beyond the boundaries and it changed the mindset of people. So tourism and sports can play a part.
Summer, what would your message be to all the young girls all across the world wanting to go on adventures like yourself, wanting to pursue this?
Just go beyond their fears and take your families on board, because without their support, it's very, very hard to pursue such odd field. And besides adventure and sports or traveling, there are a lot of fields which the females want to do. They want to do photography, they want to go for arts, they want to go for acting and singing, but their parents don't allow it. So I would ask them to keep talking and sharing about their dreams to their parents. Take their confidence, prove yourself, prove your profile initially, and then you can go beyond your imaginations. You can achieve a lot of things. You have a lot of potential. Just don't waste it.
Thank you so much, Samar Khan, for joining us. That was an inspirational story, and we hope that you continue to have more successes in the future. Dr. Fatma, as Samar also mentioned here, that social media plays a large part in creating perceptions and also relearning certain perceptions. And you also mentioned how through social media you can channel a positive initiative. Were you able to come into contact with other women across the world who are perhaps grieving and suffering loss, or was it more focused towards giving support to women in Pakistan alone?
Through the social media, I think if you allow me to remember to mention this, the first responsibility of the social media is to cover the incidents very carefully. Because in the first few months of this tragedy, because of the magnitude, and obviously it is very important that you share whatever news is happening in Pakistan. Sometimes the privacy of that family is invaded. So I think that it's very, very important that whatever news is shared, whatever aspects of the incident is covered, that should be shared with responsibility. And I think that this is also the point where we have tried to make a difference. That social media is not just for sharing news immediately, but also for sharing the journeys of different people
in a respectful way,
and a very long time after the tragedy has happened. Next year in February, it will be almost 6 years since I lost my husband and my son. And families like mine still grieve, they still remember their loved ones, they still think about them. So how they cope with their own journeys is very, very important. And I think social media is an excellent source where we can do that, especially to raise the profile of the communities under persecution, how the families of belonging to the communities under persecution, where women are especially suffering. The Hazara women are suffering. People from other communities are suffering. From the Christian community are suffering. I think social media is an excellent source. As far as reaching out of other people from all over the globe is concerned, yes, we now see a response from other countries. Some of the families, Pakistani families who have settled abroad, they also share their experience. And it is very surprising for me at least, that people who are living in the so-called West world, they also feel this need that the grief should be shared. So this is something that we are very proud of, that the Grief Directory is not only encouraging people from Pakistan, but from all over the world to share their loss, to share their grief, and to talk about their pain, and also to get inspired by the fact that while there is negativity around us in these unfortunate circumstances, and terrorism is not just restricted to Pakistan, it is a global issue now. There is hope in Pakistan, and women who are facing such tragedies in Pakistan do survive, and they do survive well.
On that note, we'll take a short break. Stay with us. Hello and welcome back to Indus Special. We're continuing our discussion regarding the amazing women we have here in Pakistan. We're joined with Ushna Suhail, who is a tennis player. She is the first Pakistani world-ranked female tennis player. Thank you so much, Ushna, for joining us.
You're welcome. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you please, Ushna, tell us a little about how you developed an interest in this sport?
I think tennis was my family sport, and my father's side basically they were all into tennis, and that's how I think I got into the sport. And yeah, alhamdulillah, I'm blessed to be in a game like tennis. I think if I look back at the 12 or 13 years of my life, I think every moment and every part of it was worth it. So alhamdulillah, I think it's been a very good journey for me and my tennis career and my family and all the people who supported me. So yeah.
So Ushna, you decided that tennis was your dream and you went towards it with full force. Did you ever feel at any point in time that there was a pushback from either your family or society at large?
There were points, I never planned to become a tennis player, but I remember my father used to play club tennis and he used to watch tennis matches on TV, and that's how I developed interest into this game. And I would definitely give a lot of credit to my parents who have supported me throughout. And yes, there have been setbacks and points where, I felt maybe maybe I should, I was double-minded about continuing this game or not. But then again, like I said, when I look back at my achievements and everything that I've done for my country, and it definitely makes me proud, and that's what keeps me going. And obviously the support circle around me has been amazing, mashallah. But I think it's part of the game, I think you have to take negative and positive criticism, and that's just part of the game, and winning and losing is part of this game. And there are times when I was, you get self-doubts as well, but then you don't have an option then to keep going because of the system around you and the people who expect from you. I think expectations is also something that keeps you going. So, yeah, there have been
tennis, like many other sports, is a male-dominated sport, and even internationally, tennis players like Serena Williams and many others, they face so much criticism on a daily basis. How do you, as a female, leave your mark, create your space in this game?
I think still, there are some issues, like, for example, prize money issues. We have, even in national tournaments, we have a huge difference in prize money. Like, for example, if the men are getting like 1 lakh, the females are only getting maybe 50 or 60,000. And, there has to still be a point where the federation, they're looking up to it, and we have officially written a letter to them as well. So hopefully they will look up to it, and, they will set this right, and they will be able to, do something. I mean, the good thing is that they have been arranging a lot of tournaments this year, so we have been busy. But at the same time, they need to raise the ratio of prize money, because that's how the game will be promoted, and that's how the future of Pakistan women tennis and all, that's also one of the ways it's going to be. Yeah, that's how it's going to bring in more players, and it's going to encourage more players to come in the game as well. So still, there are aspects that we have to fight every day to keep going. And like to say that if you keep hoping, then, that's how you keep moving forward.
So it
yeah,
definitely seems like it
hopeful.
requires a lot of determination, and it seems like you're quite a fierce young lady. So you've represented Pakistan at international forums as well. How was it then going there and representing your country? How did it feel like?
Definitely, it's an honor for me to wear Pakistan color every time I go abroad because, first of all, people get a little bit, especially the foreigners and the European players, they feel a little bit amazed and shocked that, there is someone from Pakistan who's into a game like tennis. And yeah, it has happened several times, but then they appreciate, the fact that what I've been able to do for my country and, it's because, like you said, tennis is a global sport and it's an international sport and it's a very popular sport. So in Pakistan, we have quantity of players who can play some great tennis. We have good matches in the quarter or semi-stage in our national championships. So, but like I said, the quantity of players will increase once they focus on different aspects like increasing the prize money and promoting women's tennis more and,
Ushna, you mentioned here how people abroad have this certain image and they're shocked when they see you. Can you tell us a little about the stereotype they hold regarding Pakistani women and Pakistani sportswomen specifically?
I think the general image that they have about Pakistani women is that, they're mostly covered and, that typical image. I think Pakistan has, unfortunately, after the 9/11 incident, I think Pakistan has had an image of, terrorism and all that. But, every time I go abroad and I get a chance to talk to the foreigners and other players, I try to present a very soft image of our country because Pakistani people are very loving, they're very caring people. I mean, the situation in Pakistan has improved so much. Like even now, if you see, there are foreign players who are in Islamabad currently who've come here to play international tournaments, which have been National Tennis Federation. So they started the system last year. So, I think they have this stereotype image about Pakistani women that they're very reserved and, they're not allowed to get out and fight for their
Ushna, I'd
rights.
also like to bring Myra into this conversation. Myra, how do you think Pakistani women have been breaking barriers, how they have been breaking the mold and excelling and changing?
I think we have changed their perception regarding Pakistani women. There was a time that the people of Pakistan eventually they were thinking that women can't do anything and they are just born to have kids and cook food for them. So I think that through our dedication, through our hard work, the women have changed their images. Like we have women like Shameen Ubet-Chanoy, we have women like Naseem Hamid, we have so many role models here in Pakistan who have represented their country to the other world, and they did it so beautifully and so well.
Dr. Fatma, you interact with women on a daily basis. What message can you give to other women about supporting each other, about coming together as a community and being there for each other through thick and thin?
Mishal, I would take it from three aspects. Number one is that the women's, I could not stress this point more, that the role of other women in support of a woman who has faced a loss, a tragedy, or even in other difficult situations could not be emphasized more, because it is only a woman who can understand the other person's need. Through my own experience, what I realize is that if I have experienced a certain situation, it then puts a lot of responsibility on my own shoulders to realize what could be the needs of women who are in my similar situation. So through one of the projects that we are doing, and what we realized through our experience of working with other women, is that when such a loss or tragedy happens, sometimes very basic information is not available for women. So women don't know how to close a bank account when a husband has passed away, unfortunately. Women don't know how to have their ID cards renewed, how to make a passport, how to write a check sometimes. Because sometimes through our culture and sometimes through lack of education and information, it is these very basic information is lacking for women, where women struggle. And I would like to mention here that one of the most important things that women don't realize, especially in times of sudden loss and tragedy, is their rights of inheritance, and what are the laws, and how can they have their own rights. And that I think is the most important thing. The present government has established a helpline as well. The third thing, I think the most important message that I would like to give to other Pakistani women is that our first responsibility is to ourselves, because it is only when we have hope we can give it to our children. And the second thing is that we are responsible for our children, for our loved ones, but we also have to raise strong daughters, resilient daughters, daughters who have hope for Pakistan. And one day I would like to believe that just like Pakistan is prominent in other areas, sports, education, Pakistan should be identified as a country not just affected by terrorism, but Pakistan having stronger women who have fought terrorism and political violence.
That's a brilliant note to end on, and I couldn't have said it better myself. That's what Dr. Fatma said, and that's a message we'd like to send out to the world. We have powerful women here, women who have defied all odds, and we've talked to some of those brilliant ones here. Thank you, Dr. Fatma, for joining us.
Mishal.
Thank you, Ushna, for joining us. Thank you, Myra, for joining us. It was lovely talking to you all. Hope you liked today's episode. We'll see you again tomorrow.